What's up, everybody? This is George C.L.C. Samuels, and you are tuning into episode 70 of the It Will Come show, and live streaming straight from, of course, my room, because we are in a period of isolation, lockdowns, and a lot of uncertainty. But this show is here to obviously help you find the things that are more hopeful, more optimistic, right? And through patience and persistence, it will come. But today we're going to be talking about why I chose, and the reason why I stopped there is because I forgot that comments come straight in as I'm live streaming. So hello to Tommy Sparks. But yeah, today I'm going to be talking about why I rebooted this show during this period, right, whereby we are experiencing a pandemic. We are experiencing a global recession, unlike anything we've seen since the last Great Depression of the 1920s. If you've been tuning in, you might have heard me talk already about this period potentially being called the Greater Depression. But yeah, I just thought I'd take some time to fill you guys in on a bit of the back history around the It Will Come show, because we are now at episode 70, but this show was conceived about 5 years ago. So let me take you through. Cool. So I'm sharing with you this particular article because it is from LinkedIn, and it was a result of what I actually did with this show. All right. So the It Will Come show and this other group called the Pack, which is a productivity accelerator and community. I'll talk more about it here later on. Sorry. And essentially, yeah, this show was used as a way for me to actually document what I was doing as I was job hunting. All right, so for those of you who have lost your jobs during this period or are thinking about finding a new job, get creative with it, because there are obviously going to be a lot of people looking for jobs at the same time. And so one way that you can sort of stand out from the rest or stand out from the pack is by actually turning your job hunting efforts into a marketing campaign, right? Or a way for you to share your knowledge and experience with others. And so this article here, why I chose to be a community manager over being a CEO, essentially documented how I actually got a few offers actually to be CEOs of companies while I was job hunting. And that was a result of me actually sharing my entire journey and my expertise at the time on the It Will Come show. So you can see here, 2015 was an incredible year on many levels. During the course of 6 to 7 months, I took many hits in my job hunting efforts, but never gave up. It is, after all, part of the philosophy of the It Will Come show. So on March 1st, 2016, I finally did take up an offer, and it was to be the global community manager for a company called Iris. They are a global fintech company that's been around, I think, for about 30 years, headquartered in Melbourne, Australia. And it was the first actual corporate gig that I took up. Having been in the startup ecosystem previously, I was very much of the opinion that all corporates were bad, right? I was part of that rebellious group that was like, anti-government, anti-banking, yada, yada, yada. Then, I said to myself, well, actually, if I want to understand, then it's better to understand from within, right? So after working with Iris, boy, did I learn a lot, about our financial systems, about the banks. I got to work directly with the chief execs, and got to actually work with thousands of employees and see how change management worked, how communications en masse worked, and how that impacted people from a culture standpoint. And so with that, it was really interesting to observe just how everything that I was doing with the show and everything that I was doing with sort of like my job hunting efforts, turned into productizable. I don't even know if that's a word. I don't think it is. But it turned into assets that I could actually productize and resell. So for those of you who have been watching, you would have noticed that I actually did share with everyone an ebook that I created as a result of these efforts called 40 Days of Job Hunting. So if you are interested in getting a copy for yourself as well, just go to that URL. You can pause this live stream after, but it's gumroad.com/L/40 days, and use the promo code Corona Time if you want to get this for free. And you'll essentially have a template to use if you are on the hunt for your next job. And this applies to all the audiences that I speak to, right? I know people who are in the Bitcoin SV ecosystem, right? In the blockchain space who have lost their jobs. I know people who have been working in the co-working industry who have lost their jobs. So, this relates to everybody right now. So there is a particular video here that you can check out where I explain even more about why I chose to be a community manager over a CEO. Essentially, it was because the question I had at the time was, do I want to be the CEO of a smaller company or the community manager for a larger? And I opted for the community manager of a larger because I had experienced most phases of business, from being a freelancer to working in a startup to a small business and a medium enterprise, and then the last one was sort of like a corporation. Probably the one organization or business type that I haven't spent much time in yet is nonprofit organization. I had some periods where I was I think a advisory board member for one or two, but that was the extent of it. But I love to learn. I love especially analyzing all the business stages and experiencing it, right? Because when you experience something, you emotionalize it and you understand it better, in my opinion. And so, yeah, with that, going back here, so yeah, I wrote this article, got a lot of buzz. It was great promotion for Iris as well. But they turned out to be a great company. I mean, I personally really enjoyed working with them. Really good people, learned a lot. And so with this, it really is about just turning your skill sets and turning them into something that is easily digestible by others. Especially during this time, you want to be able to also provide solutions, right? So don't just be somebody who hands in a CV to a company, but look at how you can also provide value. Actually take a look at what their problems are and offer some solutions that you can assist with directly, because everybody's going to be submitting CVs, and that's if you want to stand out again, come up with solutions directly, for their problems. So yeah, that's a little bit of history around just sort of the It Will Come show, and how it was birthed. Really, it was a way to document my journey. Just as an example, this was literally my first episode. All right, again, and this was from my bedroom at the time. And, I didn't worry about having it be perfect. I just worried about getting it out and staying consistent every day. And that's one of the reasons why I say at the end of each show, through patience and persistence, it will come. And I'll share more about that story about where It Will Come came from in another episode. But, it really is about being patient, consistent, and persistent with what you put out. And the reason why I shared this too is because it's kind of ironic. But there was a point in time where I stopped with the show because a daily commitment it's a big commitment, right? When I finally hit my goal, which was getting a job, I was finding that it was harder to keep up with the episodes because there was just so many other things going on. But now that I have my own business, so we got a company called Faiā, and you can check it out at firebrand.org or also by our social media handles, which is Faiā Corp, so firecorp.com. Faiā brand actually is the registered business name. That's what we put it as when we first registered the entity. But this is Faiā. So we actually started out as a sort of a generalized blockchain marketing agency, but we're still really only focused on one blockchain, which was Bitcoin SV. Helped one other company that wasn't Bitcoin SV related, but it was at a time too when so many crypto companies, right, were just airdropping. And again, if you're watching this and you're not into the whole crypto space, don't worry, I won't bore you too much just yet, but you will definitely hear more about that as you continue to watch. But yeah, essentially, we are passionate about combining both areas of like community and technology, right? Bridging the gaps between people and technology, one community at a time. We offer consulting services, we offer marketing services, and our vision also was not just to be one company, but to have sort of subsidiaries and multiple companies. But all of it would be pinned around bridging gaps, right? Especially between people and tech. And so with that, at this point in time, I realized that people were also craving some motivation and inspiration. And now I'm not looking to be another Gary Vee. Gary Vee does his thing great. I love what he does, but I do know at the time when I was doing the It Will Come show, a lot of people were tuning in because they did enjoy the content. And the best type of content you can ever create is around your passion areas. And so the It Will Come show often talks a lot about that intersection between community and tech. And if you dig deep into that intersection, economics actually makes its way into it. So you'll often hear me talk about things, that have to do with money, wealth, business, economics, and blockchain, because that's another passion area. But again, the It Will Come show is just me sharing my philosophies, and hopefully some of you may resonate, and even if you don't, question it. I invite people to also share their viewpoints, because it is of my opinion that there are some hard truths, but there are also people's own truths, right? And you might just call that opinion or even call that wrong. But I think personally that it is important to share your truth, right? Because I believe that if everybody kind of shares their version of the truth, you come to a more fuller truth. Yes, again, you can debate me on that. But with that, it's this is a way that you can also do something similar to be able to share your own philosophy, because there are people out there who may believe similar things to you. And that's how you can actually attract an audience or draw a community around an idea. Okay, so yes, this was my first episode. And yes, actually, as the shows were continuing on, and I'm just going to scroll down here, we actually got a little bit more fancy. Attracted the attention of a videographer, who then helped me move into a more office environment. And actually, you can see down here, yeah, these episodes actually featured me in a much better setting. So let's see. Now, in today's episode, we're going to be talking... There you go. I'm pausing that. All right. Talking about... But, yeah, let's just keep the eyes there. But yeah, as you can see, it got a little bit more polished. Even had a lapel mic on myself. And, well, now that I'm rebooting the show, it's during a time of, lockdowns and isolation. And I'm back in my room again. So I really do feel like it is sort of like a return to roots. Keeping things raw, keeping things straight, keeping things honest, because this is how I started out. And I mean, like, nothing wrong with the fancier settings, right? But the reality is everybody's used to now tuning in from home because they have to work remotely, right? And people might still put on something fancy up top, but we all know that there's just shorts down below. And I think it's kind of humbling, right? It's kind of good to see how everybody now is. I think being a little bit more understanding and respectful of the realities. And, in the office environment, at work, a lot of people put up masks. A lot of people have these different personalities. And there was a funny Facebook I think I saw where people were actually sharing. I think it was wives that were sharing stories of their husbands and saying like, "Wow, I never knew that my husband was that guy at work who'd be like, let's loop back around to this next time," or other weird things that you say in the office but would never say at home, right? And it is, again, a great reset. And we talked about this in a previous episode. Go check it out. It's called The Great Reset, and that's the period that we're in. So me live streaming to you right now from my bedroom. This is a great reset, but I think it is a return to roots, right? It's a return to the things that matter, that work. That are good and useful. So, yeah, if you haven't checked out the YouTube channel yet, I've got a playlist called the It Will Come Show over at Ceosism. So here, just look at that. If you think I should have a separate YouTube channel just for the It Will Come Show, let me know. But I'm trying to keep things simple for now. And yeah, you can see all of the other previous episodes. As you can see here. Teens, confidence, Conor McGregor, boundaries, freedom, and wolves, success, family, and beavers. Yeah, a lot of really interesting topics. Okay, so let's now go move on. So there are a few articles that I wanted to share as well. Now that I've talked to you a little bit about how and why I rebooted the It Will Come show during this time of a pandemic and a recession. As I said, right, during these times, there's a lot of uncertainty. There's a lot of doubt, fears, all of that creeping in. But fortunately, that's not really something I'm worried about at this time, because if you go through previous episodes, I was expecting this time, right? But I think what I'm more worried about is everybody else at this point in time who are losing their jobs, who aren't able to feed their families. Like, these are very real issues, right? And so I am determined, to keep this show up, to be able to at least help people and pull in the things that I'm learning on a day-to-day basis as everything's happening right now, for those who are interested and for those who need to tune in. And I would also love, if there is stuff that you'd like for me to talk about, let me know. If you have any questions, hit me up. As Tommy, who did say hello, again, Tommy, howdy. Thanks for tuning in. It is, we are in a virtual age. There's no reason why we can't still virtually connect, right? And share knowledge and keep each other inspired while we're all in this isolation period. So, all right, looking here, McKinsey and Company. Could the next normal emerge from Asia, right? We had an episode where we're talking about the new normal. But in Asia, the curve of COVID-19 cases has started to flatten, right? And this makes sense. And there are talks as well about just sort of the clash of ideologies as well, like why it might have worked better in Asian countries versus Western countries, right? And some say that it is due to the fact that culturally in Asia, people will probably listen more to the government, even if they don't like it, than in the West. And it's interesting because I can see here as well, even in Singapore, most of the people wearing masks are non-Western. Those who refuse to wear their masks are Western, right? Because you look at the freedom, right? The concept of freedom is so ingrained in the Western mentality that, anything that takes away from that, rebel against it. But if there's anything that in this time it has shown too, that like, what is more important? The individual, the community, how do you balance that out? Do we sacrifice a lot of our freedoms and privacies as a result of what's going on? Is any of this even real? These are real questions to ask. But I think sometimes it is important to maybe give up a little bit of the ego, right? Or the pride in order for the greater good. But as I said, it's not always so clear cut. So, yeah, just have a look at this, right? China, South Korea. Now, some people have argued that China is giving false news or false updates on their numbers. I mean, it is what it is. Other Asian countries, you can see here. All right, days since 100th case. Yeah, it is really interesting actually to see what has been happening. India, Philippines, Malaysia, Japan. But I think we're still going to continue on with the lockdowns. Countries are, of course, putting in they're getting stricter around, like if they see people out and they don't have their masks, supermarkets can refuse entry. They can also prevent people from purchasing, and then they can also get fined, right? Talking about economics. So, I mean, even with this, right? If you're watching this, feel free to comment. Like, what do you see when you look at this graph, right? What is it telling you? Would love to hear. But here's another interesting post. Those of you warning against 5G, consider this editorial cartoon. And what this is in reference to... Oh, sorry, I'm not showing you my screen. Here we go. So here's the image. Now, if you haven't heard of the movie Currency Wars, I highly recommend you check it out. But it was talking about the AC versus DC electricity wars that was... that took place, right, when electricity was becoming a thing, right? It was amazing the world, and there was a massive war in terms of who would be able to own essentially all the business around that. Just very quickly, got Tommy here. Thank you for sharing. It's good to have you on anyways, and glad to hear that you're giving back, Tommy. But yeah, just back here to this graph, right? Why this was shared was because one of the sort of dirty tricks that was used by I think Thomas Edison at the time was to actually it was essentially to put out some propaganda that was it direct current, alternating current. Ooh, trying to remember now. But essentially, one of the currents saying that the opposition, right, was actually the cause of deaths, and that use the other currency, electricity currency, yes, um, to use to essentially whoever was using the opponent's electricity was going to be seeing death, right? And this caused a lot of fear, and I think the same thing is happening with 5G right now. In one of our previous episodes, we did talk about 5G and how there are a lot of conspiracy theories right now going out around how 5G is actually what is causing coronavirus deaths, right? And that it is actually not the coronavirus, which, you know, I mean, at this point, there's so much confusion, there's so much misinformation. Who knows? But I think 5G is probably inevitable, right? And there is a race to see who is going to dominate that. There was a video about a guy from France who was wanting about 1 million N95 masks from China, and I think Huawei had access to that, but they said we'll give it to you, right? But only if you accept 5G or install 5G through Huawei. And talk about sort of power moves during times like this. You expect people to be good. You expect people to do the right thing. But remember, light and dark, yin and yang. Not everybody's going to be that way. And so, this was a sort of a really good reference, right? About like sort of fear mongering. And so I think it's important for people to try to keep as level-headed as possible during this time. This is actually when it is needed the most, because people are going to go nuts, right? People are thinking that they're dying because of 5G. Who knows? But it's not going to stop 5G from rolling out, right? And so, yeah, Bill, great post. Really enjoyed that. But there's a lot of parallels, and I love the saying. Right, there's a quote that's been floating around too about how, at this point in time, history, when we're looking back, right, we're going through this crisis. History doesn't repeat itself, but it often rhymes. And I find that to be very, very true. All right, so moving on to the next section. And while we're doing that, I've got a question here from Tommy. Do you need to be a resident to start a limited company in Singapore, and can you still purchase? Tommy, no, you don't need to be a resident, but you do need to have a local director if you want to set up a company in Singapore. It might be a good time. So, because the Singapore government is obviously going to want to encourage more people to do business during this time, right? But we'll see. But yes, you can. You don't need to be a resident, and I think even now you don't even need to actually come hit Singapore to be able to. When I say hit Singapore, like to be here to sign things, that can be done by a local director. And a property to be a resident. Off topic. Yeah, that's okay, Tommy. Yeah, I may answer this later. But I mean, they're relevant questions, right? In terms of what can be done or not here. Yes, it is similar to the Philippines. So, all right. So this particular article was from the Blockchain Research Institute, and the reason why I'm sharing this, even though there's a lot of misinformation in the blockchain space as well, I'm sharing this because it was an interesting study, nonetheless. So essentially what they were looking at, right? They're talking about blockchain during COVID-19 and how it can actually be used, right? Because some people like, how is blockchain even relevant during this time? Well, actually, there's a lot of use cases, right? So here are some of the things that they identified. So self-sovereign identity, health records, and shared data. I highly agree with this, that if anything right now, the sort of ability to get accurate records and to share records across the globe really quickly and really accurately has highlighted sort of the gaps in the system. And so if you had a single blockchain whereby health records were all available there, it would be a lot easier to access that and have a single source of truth. But it's getting people to agree, right, on the one. Just-in-time supply chain solutions, yes, this could definitely increase the efficiency. Blockchain can definitely increase the efficiency. Sustaining the economy, how blockchain can help. Um, yeah, money itself has been a source of confusion and strain during this crisis. First, cash has been criticized as a carrier of the disease, so we're talking about physical cash. And the drumbeat to abolish it altogether is growing louder, right? This is why there's a call for, gold, silver, and Bitcoin at this point in time. This section highlights the what, why, and how of global digital cash. Second, the health crisis has become a financial crisis, gumming up supply chains, closing off access to credit, and raising the alarm of counterparty risk. This section covers blockchain-based financing solutions such as Foxconn's Chain Finance. Third, insurance and risk management has been mishandled at business and personal levels. We must rethink ways to protect people and business from the catastrophic risk. Yes, and then fourth, decentralized models of governance, organization, and problem solving. I would agree. I think we can see also the flaws of democracy. We're seeing crony capitalism in play. I think we can also agree that many of the systems that we've had to date are up for review. That something new does need to be birthed and or implemented. And I think we are going to see that emerge from this time period. What that will be, I have no idea, but I'm also excited to see what it's going to be. So here for Rapid Response Registry for medical professionals, again, all coming back to healthcare, right? So if you're involved in the healthcare space, this is going to be a pivotal time for innovation. And I think it is time for it to get some innovation, right? I think digital currencies, cryptocurrencies, blockchain has definitely provided the disruption that the banking finance sector has needed. So we've seen a lot of innovation on that over the last however many years. And I think healthcare has been the next one. And probably going to see some innovations in law too at some point. Incentive models. So I'm actually most curious and fascinated by number 5. So the incentive models to reward responsible behavior. Because this has to do, in my opinion, with the productivity side, right? And if we look at sort of the shift in productivity and the move to more remote work, we're going to have to rethink how, as a business, we actually operate more like this, right? And how we can offer better incentives, coverage, insurance, right, for people who are working remote. Because even still till today, most of the HR policies, the HR sort of traditions, right, is being geared around the old industrial age way of working. Still have to do with time input and time input. And now when it comes to output, that's actually what matters more. And so it's like going to be about how do we measure productivity and how do we reward through the right incentives. And if you look at Bitcoin as it was originally designed through the white paper, it is very much an incentive-based system, right? And it's leveraging the fact that we are human beings and incentives can punish and reward accordingly. So, yeah, this is actually one that I'm actually more fascinated by, the incentive models to reward responsible behavior. Because it seems even now during the coronavirus, right? Essentially now there's 2 things I've noticed. One, you will get punished if you are seen outside and not adhering to the social distancing rules, right? With fines, economic fines. And then 2, if you I think now they're leveraging the community. So it's like if you see like behavior that is not right, and people aren't adhering to stuff, you can be reported through apps, right? And so now everybody becomes a lawgiver or a law enforcer. That's probably the correct way. And with that, so thought I'd sort of wrap up today's session with just a call to this webinar that's happening tonight. So this webinar is called Building Resilience During COVID-19. And it's being hosted by Aaron O'Brien, who's one of our co-founders for the PAC, which I spoke about earlier. And the PAC is essentially one of our products and communities that's been around for the last 4 to 5 years. It is, very heavy community-based, but through productivity. What we found is that individual productivity, there's so much focus of that in general, right? When you think about productivity, but not much has been looked at in terms of the effects and the influences of a community or a group or a team when it comes to productivity, right? Who you surround yourself with, your environment, those sort of things are often neglected when talking about productivity. Right, so you can find that some people will often struggle to try and do all of these things that we're told in all these productivity books, etc., use the tools. We're still struggling on our own. And so The pack is actually, we figured out a way to assist with greater productivity by leveraging the group. And so this particular webinar is about how taking those lessons, sharing it with you guys, so you can learn a little bit more, and also to give you some time out, essentially. This is a 90-minute webinar. We did this with our pack already, and they really, really appreciated and enjoyed this. I mean, even myself, right? Because just the exercise and activities that we do allows you to get out of your head for a bit, and to look objectively at what's going on, and reset, right? Because building resilience is a very important thing during this time, and you'll probably hear that word used a lot. And we actually think wolves, that's why we call ourselves a pack, have many lessons to share when it comes to resilience, because they're known for their stamina, their endurance, and their ability to work together to survive some of the most harshest environments and climates in the world. And nature always has the answer, in my opinion. And I think it's important to actually start getting that message out there with you guys. So you can learn more about what we've learned and how we actually pull that into our business. So yes, today, please go look up this webinar. I'll put the link in the show notes. Register. It's going to be happening at 7:30 p.m. tonight, Monday, April 13th, Australian Eastern Standard Time. Okay. With that, thank you for tuning in today. If you enjoyed it, remember to like, comment, share, do all that stuff that you usually see at the end of YouTube videos. And yeah, just really take care of yourselves during this time. And as always, remember, through patience and persistence, it will come.